"You're fired." The words echoed through Ashford Estates' marble lobby. 50 staff members watched. Some pitted, some smirked, none intervened. Callum Hartley stood there in his maintenance uniform, 48 years old, 10 years at Ashford Estate. Single father to one, 3-year-old. Triplets. He'd been raising alone for 4 years since his wife died, and now he was being fired by Saraphina Ashford, the estate's new owner, 32 years old, blonde hair like spun gold, designer crimson dress that cost more than Callum's annual salary. She'd inherited the estate 7 months ago and had been systematically replacing staff ever since. "Ashford Estate requires excellence," Saraphina announced, her voice carrying across the lobby. "You're neither excellent nor necessary. Pack your belongings. You have 1 hour." Laughter rippled. Quiet. Cruel. Callum's jaw tightened, but he nodded, turned to leave. He didn't know his daughters were watching from the service entrance. Didn't know they'd come to surprise him for his birthday. Didn't know they heard everything, and he had no idea what they'd do about it the next morning. When 3-1-3-year old girls, Isla, Bren, and Meadow Hartley walked through Ashford Estates' front doors carrying something that would change everything. Saraphina Ashford was about to learn a lesson she'd never forget. Before we continue, tell us where in the world are you tuning in from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. 2 hours earlier, Callum had been in the East Wing's mechanical room, wrench in hand, fixing the heating system that had been acting up for weeks. The estate's previous owner, Reginald Ashford, had died 7 months ago, left everything to his granddaughter, Saraphina, a woman Callum had never met, a woman who'd spent the last decade in Paris building a fashion empire, a woman who'd returned to claim her inheritance with ice in her veins and contempt in her eyes. "Mr. Hartley." Callum looked up. Mrs. Chun, the head housekeeper, stood in the doorway. Her face was pale. "Miss Ashford wants to see you in the main lobby now." Something in her voice made Callum's stomach drop. "Is something wrong?" Mrs. Chun wouldn't meet his eyes. "Just go quickly." Callum set down his tools, wiped his hands on his uniform, walked through the service corridors to the main lobby. That's where he found her. Saraphina Ashford stood at the center of the marble floor, like a queen holding court. Staff members lined the walls, watching, waiting. "Mr. Hartley," she said, her voice cool, detached. "How long have you worked here?" 10 years, ma'am." "And in those 10 years, have you ever been late?" Callum blinked. "Once, 2 years ago, my daughter was sick. I called ahead." "Have you ever filed a complaint?" "No, ma'am." "Have you ever asked for a raise?" "No, ma'am." Saraphina smiled. Cold, sharp. "That's what I thought. You're complacent, unmotivated, exactly the kind of employee this estate doesn't need anymore." Callum felt a floor till beneath him. "I don't understand." "You're fired," Saraphina said simply, "effective immediately. Ashford Estate is entering a new era, one that requires vision, ambition, excellence. You possess none of these qualities. Miss Ashford, I've worked here for 10 years. I've never missed a day except that once. I fixed things that were broken for decades before I got here." "Ah, are you arguing with me?" Saraphina's voice dropped. Dangerous. Callum stopped, looked around at the faces, watching. Some sympathetic, some gleeful, all silent. "No, ma'am," he said quietly. "Good. Pack your tools. Turn in your keys to security. You have 1 hour." She turned away, dismissing him like he was nothing. Laughter. Quiet. Scattered. But there, Callum's hand shook. Not with anger, with fear. He had 3 daughters at home, rent due in 2 weeks. No savings to speak of because everything went to therapy, appointments, and school supplies, and trying to give his girls a childhood their mother never got to see. He walked toward the service corridor, head down, shoulders tight, passed right by the storage closet where 3 young faces were pressed against the door crack. Isla, Bin, and Meadow had taken the bus after school. It was their daddy's birthday. They'd made him a card, baked cookies with Mrs. Patterson next door. They were going to surprise him. Instead, they heard everything. "Why is that lady being mean to Daddy?" Meadow whispered. "The youngest, always the most sensitive." "Sure," Isla hissed. "The oldest by 3 minutes. The protector. We need to stay quiet." "But she fired him," Wren said. Her hands were shaking. She laughed at him. Isla's jaw set. She looked at her sisters, saw the same anger, the same hurt, the same determination. "We need to go home," Isla whispered. "Before Daddy sees us, we need to think." They slipped out through the service entrance, ran to catch the bus. Arrived home 20 minutes before their father. When Callum walked through the door of their small apartment, he found them in the kitchen, cookies on the table, birthday card. 3 worried faces. "Happy birthday, Daddy," they said, quiet, uncertain. His 3 reasons for breathing. His 3 reasons for getting up every morning. His 3 reasons for staying strong, even when staying strong felt impossible. He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you, babies. These cookies look perfect." "Did you have a good day at work?" Isa asked carefully. Callum's throat tightened. He couldn't tell them. Not yet. Not on his birthday when they tried so hard to make him happy. It was fine. He lied. Just a regular day, but saw the truth in his eyes. And she knew what they had to do. That night, after Callum went to bed, the 3 girls gathered in the room they shared, whispering, planning. "We have to do something," Prince said. "But what?" Meadow asked. "We're just kids. Nobody listens to kids." "Grandpa Reginald did," Elsa said quietly. Both sisters looked at her, understanding dawning. Reginald Ashford, the estate's previous owner. A kind old man who'd always stop to talk to Callum when he visited the gardens, who'd met the girls once when they'd surprised their father at work, who'd given them lemonade and cookies and told them stories about the estate's history, who died 7 months ago and left everything to his granddaughter. "The letter," Esla said. "Remember, Grandpa, Reginald gave Daddy a letter said to keep it safe. Said it was important." "Where is it?" Bren asked. "In Daddy's desk, bottom drawer. I saw it when I was looking for tape last week." They looked at each other. What they were planning was serious. Adult serious, scary serious. But their father had raised them to stand up for what was right, to protect the people they loved, to be brave, even when being brave was terrifying. "Tomorrow morning," Isla said, "we go to Ashford Estate. We bring the letter. We make that mean lady listen." "What if she won't?" Meadow whispered. "Then we make everyone else listen." Is lied. Her voice fierce, determined. The next morning, Callum woke to find his daughters already dressed, backpacks on, standing by the door. "What's going on?" he asked, confused. "Concerned?" "We're going to school early," Hila said, too quickly. "Project. We forgot to tell you." Callum frowned. Something felt off. But he was exhausted, hadn't slept, had spent the night staring at the ceiling, wondering how he'd pay rent, how he'd feed his daughters, how he'd explained that Daddy lost his job. "Okay," he said slowly. "Be safe. Text me when you get there." "We will." They chorused and they were gone, but they didn't go to school. They went to Ashford Estate. The morning staff was just arriving when 3-year-old girls walked through the main entrance. Backpacks on, faces determined, looking young and fierce and absolutely unstoppable. Mrs. Chin saw them first. Her face went pale. "Girls, what are you doing here? Where's your father? We need to see Miss Ashford." Isla said, her voice clear. Steady. I don't think that's a good idea, sweetheart. We don't care what you think, Brent said, not rudely, just factually. We need to see her now. Mrs. Chin looked at these three young girls, saw something in their eyes that made her step aside. She's in the study, Mrs. Chin said quietly. First, door on the left. The girls walked through the marble lobby, past staff members who'd laughed yesterday, past security guards who escorted their father out, past all the people who'd stood by and watched. They reached the study door. Isla knocked. 3 sharp raps. Come in, Saraphina's voice, cold, impatient. They pushed the door open. Saraphina Ashford sat behind a massive mahogany desk. Paper spread before her, phone in hand. She looked up, annoyed at the interruption. Then she saw them. 3 young girls, identical, standing in a row. Who are you? She demanded. How did you get in here? We're Isla, Bren, and Meadow Hartley, Isla said. You fired our father yesterday. Saraphina's eyes narrowed. Your father was incompetent. This conversation is over. Leave before I call security. You fired him because he wouldn't argue, Bren said. Because he was too nice, too quiet, too easy. You fired him because you could, Meadow added, her voice shaking but determined. Saraphina stood, walked around the desk, towering over them in her designer heels and perfect suit. Your father was an employee. I don't owe him anything. I certainly don't owe him an explanation. Now leave before I have you removed. Our grandfather gave us something, Isla said. She reached into her backpack, pulled out an envelope, yellowed with age, sealed with wax. Saraphina froze. What is that? A letter, Elsa replied. From Reginald Ashford, your grandfather. He gave it to our daddy 7 months ago, right before he died. Said to keep it safe. Said it was important. That's impossible, Saraphina breathed. Bren said Daddy fixed things for him, talked to him, was kind to him when everyone else was too busy. Grandpa Reginald said Daddy reminded him of someone he'd lost. Isla held out the envelope. He said to give this to you if you ever came back. Said you need to see it. Said it would remind you who you used to be. Saraphina stared at the envelope like it was a snake. Her hand trembled as she reached for it. She broke the seal, pulled out a single sheet of paper, began to read. The color drained from her face. No, she whispered. No, he wouldn't. He couldn't. What does it say? Meadow asked quietly. Saraphina looked at these 3 young girls. These 3 fierce, brave, impossible young girls, and something cracked in her carefully constructed armor. It says, her voice broke, it says that Callum Hartley is my uncle, my father's half-brother. The room went silent. What? All 3 girls gasped. Saraphina sank into a chair, the letter trembling in her hands. My grandfather, he had an affair 49 years ago with a woman named Claire Hartley. She got pregnant, had a son, Callum. She looked up, tears streaming down her perfect face. My grandfather sent money, help when he could, but he never told anyone. Never claimed Callum publicly because his wife would have divorced him, because the scandal would have destroyed the family. But he loved him, Esla said softly, understanding dawning. That's why he hired Daddy. That's why he always talked to him. That's why he gave him the letter. He wanted me to know, Saraphina whispered. Wanted me to take care of him, to treat him like family. And instead, she couldn't finish, covered her face with her hands, sobbed. 3 3-year-old girls looked at each other. They come here angry, fierce, ready for war. But now they saw something else. A woman who'd made a terrible mistake. A woman who was broken. A woman who'd lost just as much as their father had. Isla stepped forward, put her small hand on Saraphina's knee. You can fix it, she said gently. It's not too late. You can fix it. Saraphina looked at this young woman. This extraordinary, compassionate, impossible young woman. How? She whispered. How do I fix what I've done? You start, Brent said, by telling the truth. 20 minutes later, Saraphina Ashford stood in the main lobby of Ashford Estate. Staff gathered, confused, worried. 3 young girls stood beside her, supporting her, holding her hands. I need to make an announcement, Saraphina began, her voice shaking. Yesterday, I fired Callum Hartley. I did it publicly, cruelly, without cause. I did it because I was angry, bitter, hurting, and I took it out on a man who'd done nothing but serve this estate with loyalty and kindness. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. What I didn't know, Saraphina continued. What I learned this morning from his 3 extraordinary daughters is that Callum Hartley is my uncle, my father's half-brother, that our grandfather, Reginald Ashford, left him in my care, asked me to treat him as family, to honor him, to protect him. Gasps, shock, disbelief, and instead I humiliated him. I fired him. I mocked him. Tears streamed down her face. I need to find him. I need to apologize, and I need to make this right. He's at home, Miss Ashford. I have his address. Then that's where we're going, Saraphina said. She looked down at the 3 girls. Will you come with me, please? I don't think I can do this alone. Isla, Bren, and Meadow looked at each other, nodded. We'll come, Isla said. But you have to mean it. You have to really mean it. I do, Saraphina whispered. I swear I do. They arrived at Callum's apartment building 30 minutes later. Small, modest, nothing like the grandeur of Ashford Estate. Saraphina climbed the stairs to the 3rd floor. The girls behind her, each step heavier than the last. She knocked on apartment 3B. Footsteps. The door opened. Callum stood there, unshaven, exhausted, wearing sweatpants and a faded t-shirt. His eyes widened. What are you doing here? And why are my daughters with you? Daddy said we can explain, but you need to listen, please. Callum looked at his daughters, at Saraphina, at the envelope and her shaking hands. Come in, he said quietly. They sat in the tiny living room, Callum on the warm couch, Saraphina in the armchair, the girls on the floor, and Saraphina told him everything about the letter, about their grandfather's affair, about the truth that had been hidden for 49 years. You're my uncle, she finished, her voice raw. My father's half-brother and your daughters are my cousins. And I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. But that's not an excuse. I should have been kind anyway. Should have treated you with dignity anyway. Should have seen you anyway. Callum, sad and stunned silence, processing, reeling. I don't want your money, he finally said. I don't want this state. I don't want anything from you. I know, Saraphina whispered. But I want something from you. What? Forgiveness? Her voice broke. A chance to know you. A chance to be the niece I should have been from the beginning. A chance to make this family whole. Callum looked at his daughters, at their hopeful faces, their loving eyes, their belief that people could change. I don't know if I can forgive you yet, he said honestly. You hurt me, humiliated me, made me feel worthless in front of people I'd worked with for years. I know, Saraphina said, and I will spend the rest of my life making it up to you if you'll let me. Why should I? Saraphina met his eyes. Because your daughters believe in second chances. Because our grandfather wanted us to be family. Because I'm asking. And because I think. Her voice shook. I think maybe we both need this. Maybe we're both tired of being alone. Callum felt tears burn his eyes. He looked at Isla, at Bryn, at Meadow, at the 3 young girls who'd done the impossible, who'd stood up to power, who'd demanded truth, who'd fought for their father when no one else would. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, we can try." Saraphina burst into tears, stood cross to him, and hugged her uncle for the first time in their lives. The girls piled on, a tangle of arms and tears and hope. And in that tiny apartment, with its worn furniture and chip paint, and nothing that resembled wealth or power or prestige, a family was born. The weeks that followed were complicated, awkward, sometimes painful. Saraphina reinstated Callum immediately, not as maintenance. As estate manager, equal partner in running Ashford Estate, the staff who laughed were let go. The ones who'd stayed silent were warned. The ones who'd shown compassion were promoted. Mrs. Chun became head of operations, given a raise and an apartment on the grounds. And slowly, carefully, Callum and Saraphina learned to be family, uncle, and niece. She taught him about the business side, the investments, the responsibilities. He taught her about the estate itself, the history, the heart, the people. She took the girls shopping, spoiled them, loved them with the fierceness of someone making up for lost time. He forgave her, not all at once, but slowly, choice by choice, day by day. And Isla, Bren, and Meadow watched their family grow, watched their father smile again, watched their aunt transform from ice to warmth. 6 months after that terrible day in the lobby, Ashford Estate hosted its annual holiday party. The ballroom was packed. Staff, community members, local families, everyone welcome. Callum stood at the center in a suit that fit, looking confident, happy. Home. Saraphina stood beside him. Her crimson dress replaced with something softer, her smile genuine. And 3-1-3-year-old girls stood between them, holding hands, glowing. "Thank you for coming," Saraphina addressed the crowd. "This estate has been in my family for 3 generations. But I've learned something this year. Family isn't just about blood. It's about choice, about showing up, about doing the hard work of connection." She looked at Callum. "I made terrible mistakes when I came home, hurt people who didn't deserve it. But I was given a gift, the gift of 3 extraordinary young women who refused to let me hide from the truth." She looked down at Ella, Bryn, and Meadow. The crowd erupted in applause. Later, after the party wounded down, the 5 of them sat in the estate's private garden. Stars bright overhead, the sound of laughter fading. Daddy Meadow asked. Callum pulled his daughters close, looked at his niece at the life they'd built from ashes and truth and impossible bravery. "Yeah, baby," he said softly. "I'm happy now." "Good." Saraphina reached over, took Callum's hand. "I'm sorry for all of it. I know I've said it before, but I need you to know I will never take you for granted again. I will never forget what your daughters taught me. That power without compassion is just cruelty." "I know," Callum replied. "And I forgive you, really forgive you, not just because they want me to, but because you've shown me who you really are, and she's worth forgiving." They sat in comfortable silence, a family built from broken pieces, from terrible mistakes and extraordinary courage, from 3 young girls who refused to let their father be invisible. 2 years later, Callum and Saraphina stood in a lawyer's office. Papers spread before them. "This makes you equal partners," the lawyer explained. 50 ownership of Ashford Estate. All decisions made jointly. All profits shared equally. Saraphina signed without hesitation, pushed the papers to Callum. "Are you sure?" he asked. "This is your inheritance, your birthright." "No," Saraphina said firmly. "It's our grandfather's dream. He wanted us together, wanted us to be family. This makes it official." Callum signed. They walked out of the office as equal partners, as uncle and niece, as family. That evening, they had dinner at the estate. The girls, now 15 years old, confident, happy, thriving. Aunt Saraphina, Bren said. Can we ask you something? Always. Why were you so mean? Ben asked, not accusing, just curious. When you first came back, why did you fire Daddy? Saraphina was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, I was angry. My grandfather had left me everything, but I felt like he'd left me nothing because money and property don't fill the empty spaces in your heart. And I was so empty, so bitter, so convinced that if I couldn't be happy, no one else should be either. But you're happy now, Meadow observed. I am, Saraphina agreed, because I learned something. Happiness isn't something you find. It's something you build with people you love, with family you choose, with the hard work of showing up every day and choosing connection over isolation. That's deep, Isla said, making everyone laugh. It is, Saraphina agreed. But it's true. She looked at her uncle, at her cousins, at the family she'd almost destroyed through cruelty and pride. Thank you, she said quietly, for giving me a second chance, for teaching me what family really means, for not giving up on me when I gave you every reason to. We're family, Callum said simply. That's what family does. 5 years after that terrible day in the lobby, Isla, Bren, and Meadow graduated high school, top of their class, all 3 of them. The ceremony was held in Ashford Estate's ballroom. Every staff member invited, every community member welcome. Callum sat in the front row beside Saraphina, both of them crying as their girls walked across the stage. I can't believe they're already 18, Saraphina whispered. I can't believe how brave they were at 13, Callum replied. They saved us, Saraphina said, in every way that matters. After the ceremony, they gathered in the garden for a private family celebration. Just the 5 of them. Cake, lemonade, the kind of simple joy that money couldn't buy. Girls, Saraphina said, your father and I have something for you. She pulled out 3 envelopes, handed one to each daughter. What is this? Isla asked. Open them, Callum encouraged. Inside each envelope was a letter handwritten on Ashford Estate letterhead. Isla began to read aloud, her voice shaking. Dear Isla, Bren, and Meadow, you are 18 now, young women instead of girls. But I remember the 1-3-year-olds who walked into my study carrying courage and truth, who refused to let me hide from my mistakes, who taught me that family is something you choose every single day. Tears streamed down the girls' faces. When you turn 21, the letter continued, you will each receive a trust fund, not because you're owed anything, but because you are family. Because what you did that morning changed not just my life and your father's life, but the lives of everyone who works here, everyone who calls Ashford Estate home. But more than money. Isla's voice cracked. I want you to know this. You are the bravest people I've ever met. You saw injustice and you fought it. You saw cruelty and you challenged it. You saw a broken woman and you gave her a chance to heal. Never lose that. Never stop being the warriors who kneel down and see people, who refuse to let anyone be invisible, who believe that people can change. The world needs more people like you. I'm honored to be your aunt. I'm honored to call you family. All my love, Saraphina. Meadow was sobbing. Bryn pressed her hand to her mouth. Isla looked up at Saraphina with eyes full of tears. You didn't have to do this, Isla whispered. Yes, I did, Saraphina replied. You gave me everything. This is just a way of saying thank you and a way of making sure you always know. You're not just my cousins, you're my heroes. The 5 of them embraced, a tangle of arms and tears and overwhelming love. There's something else, Callum said when they finally pulled apart. He reached into his pocket, pulled out 3 small boxes. What now? Bren laughed through her tears. Open them, Callum said. Inside each box was a necklace, simple, elegant. 3 interlocking circles. The 3 circles represent the 3 of you, Callum explained. Sisters, warriors, the most extraordinary people I've ever known. Your mother would have been so proud of who you've become. I know I am, Daddy, Meadow whispered. We love you so much. I love you too, baby, more than anything in this world. They put on the necklaces, touched the interlocking circles, felt the weight of what they represented. Family, courage, love. Later that evening, after the girls had gone to bed, Callum and Saraphina sat on the terrace, looking out over the estate grounds, processing the day. Do you remember? Callum said quietly. What you said that day in my apartment when you asked for forgiveness. I remember every word, Saraphina replied. You said you thought we both needed this, that maybe we were both tired of being alone. He looked at her. You were right. I was so alone after Sarah died, raising 3 daughters, trying to be enough, trying to fill the space she left, and I was drowning. And now, Saraphina asked gently, and now I have a niece. The girls have an aunt. We have a family, a real family built from honesty and hard work and forgiveness. His voice cracked. You gave me that. You and the girls together. You gave me a reason to believe in second chances. Saraphina's eyes filled with tears. You gave me more. You gave me a heart. I'd spent so many years building walls, protecting myself, convincing myself that caring about people was weakness, that vulnerability was dangerous, that love was something other people deserved, but not me. She wiped her eyes, and then 3, 1, 3. Year-old girls marched into my study and showed me I was wrong about everything. That courage isn't about being hard. It's about being soft, about choosing connection, even when it's terrifying, about believing people are worth fighting for. They are pretty incredible, Callum agreed. They're yours, Saraphina said. Everything good about them came from you, from the way you raised them, the values you taught them, the example you set every single day. I was just trying not to mess them up too badly, Callum laughed. You did more than that, Saraphina said firmly. You raised world changers, warriors, the kind of people who make the world better just by existing in it. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Saraphina said, Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Always. When I came back to claim the estate, I was planning to sell it, take the money, return to Paris, never look back. She paused. I hated this place, hated what it represented. My grandfather choosing propriety over love, choosing reputation over his own son, choosing cruelty over connection. The girls, Saraphina said simply that morning in my study when Esla put her hand on my knee and said I could fix it, when Bin told me to tell the truth, when Meadow looked at me with such compassion even though I'd hurt her father, her voice broke. I realized I had a choice. I could be like my grandfather, hide from my mistakes, protect my pride, stay alone and bitter and empty. Or, Callum prompted, or I could be like your daughters, brave enough to tell the truth, strong enough to ask for forgiveness, courageous enough to believe people can change. She looked at him. They saved me, Callum. In every way, a person can be saved. They saved me too, Callum replied. I was so lost after Sarah died, so convinced I had to be perfect, had to never show weakness, had to carry everything alone. And then they taught me that asking for help isn't weakness, that vulnerability is strength, that family means showing up even when it's hard. We're pretty lucky, Saraphina said, to have them. We are, Callum agreed. The luckiest. 3 years later, the girls turned 21 and were in college. Saraphina threw them a party, not at this estate, but at the community center in town, the place where Callum used to take them when money was tight and entertainment needed to be free. Why here? Callum had asked when Saraphina told him the plan. Because this is where you brought them when things were hard, Saraphina replied. This is where they learned that joy doesn't require money, that community matters more than wealth, that showing up for each other is the most important thing. She paused. I want to honor that. Want them to remember where they came from. Want to celebrate not just who they are, but who they've always been. The party was perfect, simple. Food from local restaurants, music from a student band, decorations made by hand. Every staff member from Ashford Estate came. Mrs. Chun brought homemade dumplings. The groundskeeper taught the kids a line dance. The new maintenance manager fixed the community center's broken sound system. It was loud, chaotic, beautiful. At one point, Callum found Saraphina standing alone by the punch bowl, watching the girls laugh with their friends. You did good, he said. We did good, Saraphina corrected. This is what family looks like. Not perfection, not wealth, just people showing up for each other. Remember when you said family was something you choose? Callum asked. I remember. I choose you, Callum said simply. Every single day I choose to be your uncle, to forgive you, to build this life with you because you're worth it, because we're worth it. Saraphina pulled him into a hug. I choose you too, always. Later that evening, as the party wounded down, Eslaw pulled Saraphina and Callum aside. We have something to tell you, she said. Bryn and Meadow flanking her. Should I be nervous? Callum teased. No, Meadow laughed. It's good news. We've been thinking, Bryn continued, about what we want to do, our future, our purpose. And Saraphina prompted, we want to start a foundation, Eslaw said, for kids whose parents are being treated unfairly, for families who don't have the resources to fight back, for people who feel invisible. We want to call it. Bren added, the Three Circles Foundation after our necklaces, after what we learned that day we stood up for Dad. We want to help other kids be brave. Meadow finished the way we were brave. We want to teach them that their voices matter, that they can change things, that standing up for what's right is always worth it. Callum felt tears stream down his face. You three, you never stop amazing me. Is that a yes? Isla asked. That's a hell yes, Saraphina said. And I'll fund it. Whatever you need, however much it takes. This is exactly what the world needs. The girls rushed forward, wrapped their father and aunt in a fierce embrace. And in that moment, in that community center that smelled like pizza and rang with laughter, a new chapter began, one that would touch thousands of lives. One that started with 3-1-3-year-old girls who refused to let their father be invisible, who walked into power and demanded justice, who saw a broken woman and offered redemption, who understood that the bravest thing you can do is stand up for the people you love. The Three Circles Foundation launched when the girls were in college. Office space donated by Ashford Estate. Staff made up of people who believed in the mission. In the first year alone, they helped 43 families, provided legal support, connected them with resources, taught their children that their voices mattered. In the second year, they expanded, opened satellite offices in 3 cities, helped hundreds. By the time Eslaw, Bryn, and Meadow graduated college, the foundation was helping thousands. And it all started with 3 words. You're fired. Words meant to destroy. Words that instead became a catalyst for change, for healing, for family, for hope. 10 years after the firing, Callum and Saraphina sat on the estate's back terrace, watching the sun set, watching their now 2-3-year-old cousins practice their debate skills on the lawn. Do you ever think about that day? Saraphina asked quietly. Every day, Callum replied. I'm sorry. I know I've said it 1,000 times, but I need you to know. I will never stop being sorry for what I did to you. I know, Callum said gently, and I've forgiven you. Really forgiven you. The you that fired me isn't you sitting here now. No, Saraphina agreed. She's not, because those 3 extraordinary girls wouldn't let me stay her. They watched Isla passionately argue a point about social justice, watched Bryn counter with evidence and logic, watched me mediate between them with empathy and grace. They're applying to law schools this year, Callum said. Can you believe it? I can, Saraphina replied. They've been advocating since they were 13. Remember when they marched into your study? How could I forget? 3 young warriors with a letter and enough courage to shake an empire. They saved my life that day, Callum said softly. They saved mine, too, Saraphina replied. They sat in comfortable silence. Uncle and niece who'd found each other through pain and truth. 2 people who'd learned that family wasn't about perfection. It was about showing up, choosing each other, doing the hard work of connection. I love you, Saraphina said. I don't say it enough, but I do. You're the best uncle I never knew I needed. I love you, too, Callum replied. Even when you're bossy and impossible. Saraphina laughed, shoved his shoulder. I'm not bossy, I'm decisive. You're both, Callum teased. From the lawn, Elsa called out. Stop fighting, you 2. We can hear you from here. We're not fighting, they called back in unison. Sure you're not, Bryn yelled. That's what all families say. Meadow just laughed, shook her head, went back to her notes, and Callum looked at his daughters, his niece, his family, his life, and thought about 313 year-old girls who'd refused to let the world make their father small, who'd stood up to power, who demanded truth, who'd done the impossible. They'd saved him. They'd saved Saraphina. They'd saved a family that never knew it existed, all with courage and love and the fierce belief that everyone deserved dignity, that no one should be invisible, that family was worth fighting for. And as the sun set over Ashford Estate, painting the sky in golds and crimsons and hopes, Callum whispered a prayer of gratitude for second chances, for impossible daughters, for family who learned to love, for families built from truth and forgiveness, and the hardest work of all, choosing each other every single day. The story that began with "You're fired" ended with something far more powerful. Your family. You're loved. You're home. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please don't let it end here. Let it remind you kindness still matters, compassion still changes lives, and hope is never wasted. Subscribe and be part of our Heart Echo Stories family, where every story lifts the spirit and reminds us that light always finds its way back. And if this moment moved you, share it, because sometimes sharing hope is the kindest thing we can do.